Yes, you read that title right. Hello, welcome back to another partial hangout video. In this video, I will be reviewing the mech action game Armored Core 6, developed by the renowned AAA studio FromSoftware. This video will be a spoiler-free review, but I will also be comparing the game to other FromSoftware titles that I have played. These titles will be the 3 Dark Souls games, Elden Ring, and Sekiro, so I do have quite a bit of their games under my belt. I'll divide my review into 3 main sections: gameplay, aesthetic, and story. Keep in mind, this video is just my opinion and is not objective fact. If you disagree with me, it is perfectly fine. But yes, I do think that Armored Core 6 is the best, or at least it's my favorite FromSoftware games out of the ones I've played. So, firstly, let's get into the gameplay. I absolutely adore it and think it has the best gameplay, and more specifically, combat, out of all the FromSoftware games that I've played. Now, Armored Core has you play as a mech and have pretty much a complete range of movement. You can boost around on the ground in any direction without limit, and can dash and fly in the air with a relatively generous stamina cost. There's truly a lot of freedom when it comes to movement, and this is a stark contrast to the other FromSoftware games that I mentioned, where you play as a person who can just pretty much only run and dodge, with often a very punishing stamina bar. Your way of attacking enemy mechs in Armored Core is by using weapons mounted onto your mech. You have up to 4 weapons. They can include, but are not limited to, kinetic rifles, laser swords, missile launchers, laser cannons, etc., all with their own cooldowns and mechanics. Armored Core is mainly about range combat as opposed to other FromSoftware games being more melee focused. Now, the game offers a super large variety of weaponry that you can unlock and purchase over time by playing through the game and accumulating Armored Core's in-game currency. You can also buy different mech parts and fully customize your mech's design to your liking. There are other parts you can also buy to enhance your mech's gameplay as well, like thrusters, generators, and a few other things. All these things combined make way for a lot of different ways to play the game. You could be super tanky, super nimble, etc. This aspect of making your own build is just like Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Those games revolve around getting different weapons and armor to change your build and change the way you play. Now, playing through the game consists of doing missions that normally revolve around clearing an area of enemies and getting to an objective point. Armored Core 6 does not prioritize exploration or level design much at all. It's really just about clearing enemies and moving on. Because you have a lot of freedom of movement, like I said earlier, the level doesn't really need to restrict you or contain the player in any way, so the levels do often contain a lot of open-ended spaces. Although I'm always down for a well-designed level. Dark Souls especially has those well-designed levels. I do believe that the game makes up for this because of how good the combat is. Now, what makes this game truly different from Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Sekiro, is the lack of invincibility frames. When you're trying to dash, when you try dashing to avoid an enemy, there is not a moment where the player is invincible to damage. This means that when you're playing Armored Core, you have to purposely get out of the way of an attack to dodge it. You do this by, of course, analyzing where the attack is coming from, how fast it's going, etc. However, in Dark Souls and Elden Ring, the primary way to avoid damage is through a rolling mechanic, which relies on invincibility frames. In other words, instead of really taking the time to learn how to best dodge the attack, you just make sure you roll at the right time and you'll be good. The same goes for Sekiro. Although the game relies on a parry mechanic instead of a rolling mechanic as the primary way of defense, the idea is still the same. Parry at the right time. The depth added to defensive play in Armored Core is why I prefer it over the other games. It feels much more engaging and exciting to dodge an attack because of correct positioning over solely dodging and parrying at the right time and getting those iframes. It really makes you feel like you're actually in a real battle instead of just some kind of rhythm game where you have to learn to press the button at the right time. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Dark Souls and Elden Ring and Sekiro. This is just kind of why I prefer Armored Core more. But moving on. Now, when it comes to offense, however, Armored Core is indeed less about looking for an opening to attack, unlike the other FromSoftware games. Since the weapons are mostly ranged, you can just fire away as you dodge. A good amount of the weapons do require you to charge up fire, causing your mech to stay still, which would require shooting at an opportune time. But it really just depends on the build you're going for. Generally speaking though, you are playing offense as you are defending. And truthfully, I do like this as well because I'm constantly worrying about two things at once. Meanwhile, in the other games, you are either dodging or attacking an opening, usually never both. Which just isn't as exciting, in my opinion. The emphasis on precise movement along with managing your weaponry while dodging attacks is why I think Armored Core's combat truly shines from the others. It's just more fun to me. Now, shifting over to the game aesthetic, call me biased because I am a huge Transformers fan, but I just love seeing big robots fight each other. Not only that, but I just feel like there isn't enough sci-fi mech games out there. There are so many fantasy games these days, especially dark fantasy due to Elden Ring's success, that playing a sci-fi mech game is just very refreshing to me. The mechs in Armored Core also look super cool too. Not gonna spoil anything, but the later bosses especially look really intimidating, and their presentation is nothing short of phenomenal. And it makes sense since this game is a FromSoftware game after all. It can be very grand and epic, just like their game Elden Ring. Large boss arenas, cinematic cutscenes, etc. The music definitely helps too. The game's tracks are these super catchy synthwave songs that can also get surprisingly emotional, especially when you fight those later fights. In addition, the aesthetic of the levels and world are very immersive. Buildings and biomes are clearly thought out and feel real. As I said, I'm likely biased, but I just prefer a sci-fi mech world to a dark fantasy world. That being said, the overall game aesthetic is just very nice, very well done. Touching on the story, you are a mercenary tasked with taking jobs on a planet called Rubicon. You get to see both sides of an ongoing war between corporations and the inhabitants of the planet as they fight for control over a valuable energy source called coral. However, you and your handler are on this planet for an even greater purpose that gets revealed later, which intertwines with the ongoing conflict. Throughout the game, you're constantly having NPCs communicate to you during and off missions, not only to guide you, but to also simply interact. It truly makes you feel like you're living in a world. This method of storytelling is very different from Dark Souls and Elden Ring, as they rely on the environment to convey a story with minimal NPC dialogue. Sekiro is somewhat like Armored Core and has more of a narrative with straightforward NPC dialogue, but Armored Core definitely cranks it up a few notches. Personally, I generally prefer this approach over environmental storytelling. When fighting a boss in Elden Ring, for example, I often have no idea who I'm fighting and why, only to learn in a 2-hour lore video on YouTube the true significance of the fight. Meanwhile, in Armored Core, I'm up to speed with who and why I'm fighting everything I'm fighting. This adds a lot of extra narrative weight to me when you fight a boss, knowing the surrounding context. And overall, the presentation of the story in Armored Core is just something I like a lot better than the Dark Souls and Elden Ring story presentation. And the story itself is just really good as well, very interesting and really engages you, especially towards the end. But in conclusion, I believe Armored Core is better than Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Sekiro due to its free-flowing combat, its sci-fi mech aesthetic, and the straightforward story presentation. Although this game does not share the intricate level design of the other games, which I do really love too, I believe the combat system makes up for it, and honestly, the open spaced out levels may very well be accommodating that free player movement that the game gives you in the first place. But yeah, that's it for my review. That's why I think Armored Core is my favorite FromSoftware games out of the ones I've played. I really appreciate you for sticking around. Feel free to like and subscribe. More gaming videos on the way. Thanks for watching. Partial Hangout, signing off.